Pay attention to this courtroom footage from September 2019. The defendant enters through those heavy wooden doors, flanked by 6 corrections officers in full tactical gear. His name is Isaiah Kendrick. He's 17 years old, but he walks with the swagger of someone who thinks they've already won. Watch his face. That smirk. That cocky, dismissive smirk that never leaves his expression, even as the judge reads the charges against him. First-degree murder, armed robbery, conspiracy. The list goes on. Notice how he leans back in his chair, arms crossed, like he's bored, like this is all beneath him. When the judge asks him to stand for the reading of charges, he takes his time, deliberately slow, making everyone wait. The courtroom is packed. Families of the victims, community members, media cameras capturing every moment, and Isaiah Kendrick is performing for all of them. The media would later call him the laughing gunman after surveillance footage captured him literally laughing as he fled a crime scene. But the families who lost everything that winter night, the Harpers, the Delgados, the Kowalskis, they called him something else entirely. A monster. A predator who'd terrorized their quiet neighborhood for months before finally taking 3 lives in a botched convenience store robbery. This is the story of how a teenager's arrogance in the courtroom collided with a single devastating detail that wiped the smirk off his face forever. And it's a window into how one judge refused to let a young killer treat her courtroom like a stage. But let me take you back to where this all began. Riverside, Illinois, population 38,000. The kind of blue-collar town where people worked hard, minded their own business, and looked out for their neighbors. The Korean market on Harrison Street had been a fixture in the community for 22 years, owned and operated by the Delgado family. Samuel Delgado, 54 years old, had immigrated from Mexico in his 20s and built the store from nothing. His daughter, Maria Delgado, 28, worked there part-time while finishing her nursing degree. She was engaged to be married that spring. Robert Harper was 41 years old, a construction foreman who stopped by the Korean market every evening on his way home from work. His wife would later say he was the kind of man who talked to everyone, who knew the Delgados by name, who always asked about their families. His daughter Emma was 16. His son Jack was 13. Robert was their hero. And then there was Nina Kowalski, 19 years old, working her first real job as a cashier at the store. She was saving money for college, dreaming of studying marine biology. Her mother described her as shy, but determined, the kind of girl who volunteered at the animal shelter on weekends and wrote poetry in her spare time. These were the 3 people whose lives would be stolen on February 8th, 2019. Isaiah Kendrick was 16 years old when he joined the street gang known as the Southside Reapers. His mother, Denise Kendrick, would later testify that she'd watched her son change over the course of that year. The good kid who'd once loved basketball and video games had transformed into someone she barely recognized. Someone who stayed out all night, who came home with unexplained cash, who looked at her with cold, dismissive eyes when she tried to talk to him. Isaiah had dropped out of school in 10th grade. His teachers described him as intelligent but unmotivated, someone who seemed to think rules didn't apply to him. That arrogance, that sense of invincibility, would only grow as he climbed the ranks of the Reapers. By January 2019, Isaiah had been arrested twice, once for possession with intent to distribute, once for assault. Both times, he'd been released pending trial. Both times, he'd gone right back to the streets. His social media was filled with photos of cash, guns, and threatening messages directed at rival gangs. He posted videos of himself waving around firearms, laughing about violence, bragging about his reputation. What nobody in his neighborhood knew was that Isaiah and 3 other members of the Reapers had been planning something bigger. They'd been watching the Korean market for weeks, noting when deposits were made, when the store was busiest, when Samuel Delgado locked up for the night. They wanted a quick score, easy money, in and out. Big mistake. February 8th, 2019. 7:47 p.m. The Korean market was preparing to close when 4 masked figures burst through the front door. Security footage would later show every second of what happened next, and what that footage revealed would become the centerpiece of the prosecution's case. Isaiah Kendrick entered first, a .45 caliber handgun in his hand. Behind him came 3 other gang members: Marcus Reeves, 18, Devin White, 17, and Christopher Hayes, 19. All of them armed, all of them shouting. Samuel Delgado was behind the counter. Maria was stocking shelves in the back. Nina Kowalski was at the register, and Robert Harper was at the coffee station, about to pay for his usual evening purchase. The robbery should have taken 2 minutes. That's what Isaiah had planned. Get the money, get out, no one gets hurt. But Robert Harper, that good-hearted construction foreman who talked to everyone, made a split-second decision that would cost him his life. When he saw the guns pointed at Nina, this terrified 19-year-old girl frozen in fear, Robert stepped forward. His hands were raised. He was trying to calm the situation, trying to protect her. Isaiah Kendrick shot him twice in the chest. Maria Delgado heard the gunshots and came running from the back of the store. She saw Robert Harper on the ground, saw the blood, saw her father being forced to empty the register. She screamed. She grabbed for her phone to call 911. Devin White shot her 3 times. Samuel Delgado lunged across the counter, trying to reach his dying daughter. Isaiah Kendrick shot him in the head. Nina Kowalski never moved. She stood there, hands trembling, staring at the 3 bodies on the floor of the store where she'd worked for 8 months. The surveillance footage captured the moment she looked directly at Isaiah, her face a mask of absolute terror. And Isaiah Kendrick laughed. He actually laughed. Then he shot Nina twice, leaving her dying next to the register. The 4 gang members grabbed 843s from the register and fled. Total time in the store, 4 minutes and 17 seconds. 3 people dead for 843. The 911 call came in at 7:52 p.m. First responders arrived within 6 minutes, but by then, all 3 victims were gone. Robert Harper died instantly. Samuel Delgado died at the scene. Maria Delgado made it to the hospital, but succumbed to her injuries an hour later. Nina Kowalski died in the ambulance, her mother arriving at the emergency room just minutes too late to say goodbye. Detective Angela Morrison caught the case. She was a 19-year veteran of the Riverside Police Department, and she'd seen her share of violence, but nothing like this. A triple homicide over less than $900. 3 innocent people executed in cold blood. The surveillance footage was crystal clear. High-definition cameras captured everything. The faces behind the masks slipping during the chaos. The guns. The methodical way Isaiah had moved through the store shooting anyone who moved or made noise. The footage captured him, laughing as Robert Harper fell. Within 48 hours, all 4 suspects were identified. Within 72 hours, all 4 were in custody. Isaiah Kendrick was arrested at his mother's apartment. When Detective Morrison and her team knocked on the door, Isaiah answered wearing the same jacket he'd worn during the robbery, the one clearly visible in the surveillance footage. In his bedroom, they found the .45 caliber handgun used to kill Robert Harper and Samuel Delgado. Ballistics would later confirm a perfect match. They also found something else. A video on Isaiah's phone, recorded just hours after the murders. In it, Isaiah and his 3 co-defendants were laughing, counting the money they'd stolen, celebrating. Isaiah looked directly at the camera and said, "That's how you handle business. That's how you show you're not to be messed with." He was smiling. The community of Riverside was shattered. Vigils were held. 3 funerals in 1 week. Robert Harper's children, Emma and Jack, stood at their father's funeral looking lost and broken. Samuel and Maria Delgado were buried together, father and daughter laid to rest side by side. Nina Kowalski's mother could barely stand at her daughter's service. supported by family members who looked equally devastated. The Korean market was closed indefinitely. The crime scene tapes stayed up for weeks. People left flowers, candles, photos, handwritten notes. The entire community was grieving, trying to understand how something like this could happen in their town. Isaiah Kendrick, Marcus Reeves, Devin White, and Christopher Hayes were all charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, armed robbery, and conspiracy. They were held without bail pending trial. Isaiah's 3 co-defendants immediately began cooperating with prosecutors, making plea deals in exchange for lesser sentences. They testified against Isaiah, identifying him as the ringleader, the one who'd planned the robbery, the one who'd shot first. Isaiah refused to take a plea. His attorney, a public defender named Thomas Crawford, tried to convince him. The evidence was overwhelming. Surveillance footage, forensic evidence, witness testimony from his own accomplices, the murder weapon in his possession, the video celebrating the murders on his phone. But Isaiah thought he was untouchable. He told his attorney he wasn't afraid of any jury. He said he'd beat the charges or get a light sentence because he was a juvenile. He was 16 at the time of the murders, though he'd turned 17 by the time the trial began. Thomas Crawford knew they were walking into a massacre. The trial began in September 2019. The prosecution was led by District Attorney Rachel Zimmerman, a 15-year veteran known for her methodical case preparation and her ability to connect with juries. She spent weeks preparing, interviewing the families, reviewing every frame of surveillance footage, consulting with forensic experts. The defense had almost nothing to work with. Thomas Crawford's strategy was to argue that Isaiah had been influenced by older gang members, that he was young and impressionable, that he deserved a chance at rehabilitation rather than life in prison. But from the moment Isaiah Kendrick walked into that courtroom, he made Thomas Crawford's job impossible. The footage I showed you at the beginning, that cocky swagger, that dismissive smirk, that was Isaiah's demeanor throughout the entire trial. He treated the proceedings like a joke. When the judge, the Honorable Patricia Chen, asked him questions, he'd take his time answering, sometimes rolling his eyes. When victim impact statements were read, he'd yawn or stare at the ceiling. The jury watched all of this. They watched him mock the process. They watched him show zero remorse, zero humanity, zero acknowledgement of the 3 lives he'd taken. The prosecution's case was devastating. Rachel Zimmerman methodically walked the jury through every piece of evidence. The surveillance footage was played in its entirety, all 4 minutes and 17 seconds of horror. The jury watched Robert Harper die trying to protect Nina. They watched Maria Delgado run to help and get cut down. They watched Samuel Delgado lunge across the counter to reach his daughter before being executed. They watched Isaiah Kendrick laugh. Forensic experts testified about the ballistics match. The murder weapon, found in Isaiah's bedroom, definitively linked him to 2 of the 3 murders. Isaiah's phone video, the one where he bragged about handling business, was played for the jury. Character witnesses testified about the victims. Robert Harper's wife described a devoted husband and father. Maria Delgado's fiancé broke down on the stand talking about the wedding they'd never have. Nina Kowalski's mother could barely speak through her tears. Through all of it, Isaiah Kendrick sat there smirking. Thomas Crawford did his best. He called witnesses who testified about Isaiah's difficult childhood, about the lack of father figure in his life, about the gang influence in his neighborhood. He brought in experts who talked about adolescent brain development, about how teenagers lack the impulse control and judgment of adults. But every time Crawford seemed to be making even a small amount of progress, Isaiah would undermine it with his behavior. The smirk, the eye rolls, the obvious disdain for the entire process. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Closing arguments were emotional. Rachel Zimmerman spoke directly to the jury about justice, about accountability, about 3 innocent people who'd been stolen from their families for $843. The jury deliberated for 7 hours. When they returned, Judge Patricia Chen asked Isaiah to stand for the reading of the verdict. He took his time, slow, deliberate. still smirking. We, the jury, find the defendant, Isaiah Kendrick, guilty of murder in the first degree in the death of Robert Harper, guilty of murder in the first degree in the death of Samuel Delgado, guilty of murder in the first degree in the death of Maria Delgado, guilty of murder in the first degree in the death of Nina Kowalski, guilty on all counts, armed robbery, conspiracy, every single charge. Isaiah's smirk wavered slightly, but he caught himself. He wasn't going to give them the satisfaction. Sentencing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. Thomas Crawford filed motions arguing for leniency based on Isaiah's age, asking the court to consider rehabilitation over punishment. But something happened during those 2 weeks. Something that would change everything. Robert Harper's daughter, Emma, who'd been 16 when her father was murdered, wrote a letter to Judge Chen. In it, she detailed her life since her father's death, the nightmares, the depression, the way her younger brother Jack had stopped talking for months after the funeral, the way her mother cried herself to sleep every night, the way their family would never be whole again. But the letter also included something else. Emma had done research. She'd found out that Isaiah Kendrick had a younger sister. Her name was Aaliyah. She was 14 years old. Emma wrote that she kept thinking about Aaliyah. She kept thinking about what it must be like to have a brother who was a murderer, who'd thrown his life away, who'd destroyed so many families, including his own. She wrote that she didn't hate Aaliyah. She felt sorry for her. Judge Patricia Chen read that letter, and she made a decision. September 28, 2019, sentencing day. The courtroom was packed again. The family sat in the front row, unified in their grief and their need to see justice done. Isaiah Kendrick was brought in, still in shackles, still wearing that same smirk. Judge Chen asked if anyone wanted to make a statement before sentencing. Robert Harper's wife stood. She spoke about her husband, about the hole in their family that would never be filled. She looked directly at Isaiah and said, "You took everything from us. Everything." Maria Delgado's fiancé spoke. He could barely get the words out. He talked about the wedding they'd planned, the life they dreamed of, all of it stolen. Nina Kowalski's mother stood last. She was shaking, barely able to speak. She said, "My daughter was 19 years old. She had her whole life ahead of her. And you took it away for $843. Isaiah Kendrick sat through all of it with that same smirk, that same dismissive attitude. Then, Judge Patricia Chen spoke. "Mr. Kendrick, I've been a judge for 23 years. I've presided over hundreds of cases, including dozens of murder trials. I've seen remorse. I've seen regret. I've seen defendants who understood the gravity of what they'd done and genuinely wished they could take it back." Isaiah was still smirking. "You have shown none of that. Throughout this entire trial, you've treated these proceedings like entertainment. You've mocked this court. You've shown absolute contempt for the families of your victims. You've demonstrated that you feel no remorse whatsoever for taking 3 innocent lives." Judge Chen paused. She picked up a piece of paper from her desk. "I received a letter from Emma Harper, Robert Harper's daughter. She's 16 years old now, the same age you were when you murdered her father." For the first time, Isaiah's expression changed slightly. Something flickered across his face. "Emma wrote about your sister, Aaliyah. She's 14 years old." The smirk disappeared completely. Emma wrote that she thinks about Aaliyah often. She thinks about what it must be like to lose a brother to prison, to know that your brother is a murderer. She wrote that she doesn't hate your sister. She feels sorry for her. Isaiah's jaw clenched. His hands, which had been relaxed in his lap, suddenly gripped the edge of the table. But here's what Emma wrote that struck me most, Mr. Kendrick. She wrote, "I wonder if Isaiah ever thinks about Aaliyah. I wonder if he ever thinks about how his choices don't just hurt the people he killed, but also his own family. I wonder if he realizes that Aaliyah lost her brother, just like I lost my father." The courtroom was silent. Isaiah was staring at Judge Chen now, the arrogance gone, replaced by something else. Something that looked almost like fear. Your sister Aaliyah is here today, Mr. Kendrick. She's sitting in the back row with your mother. Isaiah turned, slowly. His eyes scanned the courtroom until he found them. His mother, Denise, sitting with her arm around Aaliyah, who was crying silently. For the first time since his arrest, Isaiah Kendrick looked like what he really was, a scared teenager who destroyed his own life, along with the lives of 3 innocent people. Judge Chen continued, Aaliyah wrote to me as well. She asked me to have mercy on her brother. She said she still loves him, despite everything he's done. She said she doesn't want to lose him forever. Isaiah's eyes were locked on his sister. The cocky swagger was gone. The smirk was gone. He looked broken. I've thought a great deal about both of these letters, Mr. Kendrick. About Emma Harper's compassion, even in her grief. About your sister's love for you, despite your crimes. And I've thought about justice. Judge Chen's voice hardened. You are guilty of 3 counts of first-degree murder. You killed Robert Harper, a devoted father and husband. You killed Samuel Delgado, a hard-working immigrant who built a life for his family. You killed Maria Delgado, a young woman engaged to be married. You killed Nina Kowalski, a 19-year-old girl with her whole life ahead of her. You killed them all for 843. You laughed as you did it. You celebrated afterward. You showed no remorse. She paused. The law allows me to sentence you as an adult, given the severity of your crimes. Isaiah Kendrick, I hereby sentence you to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole for each count of first-degree murder. These sentences will run consecutively. Additionally, I sentence you to 30 years for armed robbery and 20 years for conspiracy, also to run consecutively. The courtroom erupted. Some family members sobbed in relief. Others nodded grimly. You will spend the rest of your natural life in prison, Mr. Kendrick. You will never walk free again. You will never have the opportunities you stole from your victims. You will grow old behind bars, and you will die there. Judge Chen leaned forward. I want you to think about your sister, Aaliyah, every single day you're in prison. I want you to think about the little girl who still loves you, despite the monster you became. I want you to think about how your choices destroyed not just the Harper family, the Delgado family, and the Kowalski family, but your own family as well. That is your legacy, Mr. Kendrick. That is what you've done. Isaiah Kendrick didn't say a word. He just stared at his sister as the corrections officers moved to take him away. Aaliyah was sobbing, reaching out toward him. His mother had her face in her hands. As he was led from the courtroom, Isaiah Kendrick looked back one more time. The smirk was gone. The arrogance was gone. All that remained was a teenager who'd finally realized what he'd lost, and that there was no way to get it back. Isaiah Kendrick is currently serving his sentence at Pontiac Correctional Center in Illinois. He will die in prison. He'll never attend another family gathering, never see his sister graduate high school, never walk free again. Marcus Reeves received 45 years in exchange for his testimony. Devin White received 40 years. Christopher Hayes received 50 years. All of them will be elderly men before they're eligible for parole. The Korean market never reopened. The building stood empty for 2 years before being demolished. A small memorial park now sits on the site with 3 benches, each bearing a plaque, in memory of Robert Harper, devoted father and friend. In memory of Samuel and Maria Delgado, beloved family. In memory of Nina Kowalski, forever young. Robert Harper's children, Emma and Jack, are living with their mother. Emma graduated high school in 2021 and is studying criminal justice in college. She said she wants to work with at-risk youth to try to prevent other families from experiencing what hers did. Nina Kowalski's mother established a scholarship fund in her daughter's name for students pursuing marine biology. It awards $5,000 annually to a student who demonstrates Nina's same passion for the ocean and for helping animals. The Delgado family closed their other business ventures and moved away from Riverside. The grief was too much. The memories too painful. Robert Harper was 41 years old when his life was stolen. He was a father, a husband, a friend, a good man who tried to protect a terrified young woman and paid for it with his life. Samuel Delgado was 54, an immigrant who'd built a life from nothing, who'd worked every day for 22 years to provide for his family. Maria Delgado was 28, weeks away from her wedding, months away from finishing her nursing degree. She had so much life ahead of her. Nina Kowalski was 19 years old. She loved poetry and animals and the ocean. She was shy but determined, working hard to save money for college, dreaming of studying marine life. They were real people with families who loved them. This is their story. Isaiah Kendrick walked into a courtroom thinking he was invincible, thinking he could mock the system, thinking he'd beaten the charges or would get off easy because of his age. And it took one letter from the daughter of a man he murdered, one mention of his own sister, to finally break through that arrogance and make him realize what he'd done. But it was too late. Justice had been served, but Robert, Samuel, Maria, and Nina were still gone. May they rest in peace.